Judson Robinson, who also joined us last week to talk about much of this while we were watching the protests last week. Judson, we should mention to people you are head of Houston Area Urban League, but you're also a former city council member. Your father was the first African-American city council member, and your mother served as well. I think you still hold the record of the only person to have his entire family, more or less, serve on city council. But we've been talking about where he grew up, and you know the Third Ward extremely well. Let's talk a little bit about CUNY Homes and the area where he grew up, which was really public housing project and very poor at the time.
You're absolutely right. I mean, you know, there are signature places in Third Ward. Texas Southern University, the CUNY Homes, signature streets like Dowling, now Emancipation Avenue, Scott Street, Elgin Avenue. The CUNY Homes was you know, public housing that was available for some of the poorest residents that were here in our city. And this was a haven for people who had no other recourse. And of course, when Georgia's mom came to Houston, this is where she ended up raising her 5 children. A tremendous challenge. Obviously, you know, a lot of love in a community like that because they all, you know, rely on one another to survive, to be able to get, you know, all the things that are needed on a daily basis. It wasn't always possible to have it all come out of one household, and you might have to rely on a neighbor. So, you know, the CUNY Homes is one of those places that is so important to our community because it stands for so many people that have come out of it, that have gone through hard times, that have risen above the challenge and made it. Another famous George is George Foreman, who also grew up in that community. You know, so it's a place that African Americans were given an opportunity to live and even to manage. My grandfather was the first manager of public housing. He had that in the Kelly Court. So in the early days of African Americans having independence and being able to be trusted with these opportunities because they had prepared themselves, this was a property in which oftentimes, you know, he would help to offset someone's rent. He would make sure that there was food on the table for these families. So, you know, as I look at these people at the memorial service, standing in the heat, I look at the buses that Commissioner Ellis is providing, I look at all of the hard work that the Fountain of Praise has put into making sure that, you know, everyone gets a chance to pay their respects. This is Houston. This is Houston. We work together. We try to make it a better place for all of us. But we realize that we still have work to do. And that's so important that we have a moment to kind of reflect on, here's a person who has you know, had big dreams. He said that he wanted to change the world, and he's done it. You know, and unfortunately it was in the closing moments of his life, but he has forced us to have this discussion, these difficult discussions with one another about where do we go from here? And how do we change the paradigm from what it has been to what it was always intended to be? So, you know, rest in peace, George Floyd, but thank you for the life that you lived here in Houston and in Minnesota and where you were raised in North Carolina. All that culminated into that unfortunate day. But it certainly has sent a message to not only here in the United States, but 6 countries around the world are recognizing the sacrifice that you made and looking at the own sacrifices they're making in their own countries and what needs to change. We have to continue to evolve as a people to do better. And I think this is an opportunity to do it.